Holy cow. That was probably the greatest Thursday night football game I've ever seen. That's exactly the kind of football that I want to see every single week. That is what America wants. This is what football is all about. I'm done with the flag football stuff. I'm done with the 7-on-7 crap. I'm done with it. Because what we just saw, Lions versus Packers, is what football is all about. Running backs are back. They are back. And man, if you don't follow me on X, TWYCF on X, take what you can, football on X, man, you really missed out. Because we had a lot of fun live tweeting that game. At the beginning of the game, the Packers' offensive line was really struggling. Other than Zach Tom, the Packers' offensive line was just getting obliterated. I even posted... You ever post something on X or post something you think it's the funniest thing on the planet and nobody cares? It's the worst. I literally said the Packers' offensive line is going to turn Jordan Love into Brian Thompson real quick. I thought that was hilarious. Hilarious. But it wasn't. But my next tweet was Josh Jacobs is a beast. And I get a like on that one. I don't know. Apparently on X you just say the most obvious stuff and people will like it. Josh Jacobs in this game, he almost had 4 touchdowns. He had 3. I also posted, which I also thought was really funny. This podcast is going to turn into me ranting about funny tweets that should have got more love. They should have got more Jordan Love. I literally said, where is it here? Josh Jacobs is about to become a part owner of Ford Motor Company. That is funny. You also know it's funny. Probably one of the tweets that I got the least engagement on. Emmanuel Ako, however you say it, who's probably one of the worst media personalities in a long time. He said Dan Campbell isn't being aggressive. He's being asinine. He talked about the 4th down at the end of the game. Try to kick the field goal. I go Stephen A. Smith on him. I go ass a 9, ass a 10, ass a 11, ass a 12. As in 12 wins, and it's a gift of Dan Campbell just ascending with his hand. Hilarious. Hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. But whatever. Let's get back into the football aspect of it. This was straight ground for pound. Is that how you say it? Ground for pound football. This is exactly what we want when we're watching football. And when they did throw it, they were big plays. They were exciting. That's what makes passing in this game exciting. Is when you have the big plays. And you got, Mel Kiper talking about they should get rid of cover 2. It's what are we talking about here? It's the consistent running the ball, making nice jukes, hitting people in the mouth, getting a few yards, and then going with the big plays like Christian Watson had and Jamison Williams had. And I even posted, I go, David Montgomery, it's funny how he looks much better now that he's off of Chicago. He's out of Chicago, off of the Bears, which is typically what happens with the Bears, right? And I just think it's hilarious. It's absolutely hilarious. But that's what happens when you leave Chicago. And, Detroit and Chicago basically, over a slow amount of time, switched running backs. They used to have DeAndre Swift. They let him go. One of the best running teams in football, one of the teams that wants to emphasize running the most, let go of a second-round running back. What does that tell you? What does that tell you? Chicago, Big Cat, Brett Coleman. And it was a good game. Amon-Ra St. Brown showed up when the time was right, when it was necessary. Sam Laporta made an insane catch. He did something for the first time this entire year. I've got him in fantasy. I know what it's like. Tim Patrick, great story as well. 2 touchdowns. He's been through so much in his career. And this game really lived up to the hype, man. And Josh Jacobs really helped Jordan Love in that game because the Lions had to stop the run, and at a certain point they couldn't, so they couldn't rush the way they were before because Jordan Love had no time at the beginning of this game. In order for the Packers offense to thrive, they have to be able to run the ball. They are set up for big plays off of play action. Aaron Rodgers didn't really believe in it. He didn't want to go with it with Matt LaFleur. It's what Matt LaFleur wanted to do. Aaron Rodgers is much more of a West Coast offense kind of guy. I don't know schematically. I'd have to look into it more, but I don't know if that's what they're doing with the Jets. But if it is, obviously it isn't working. This is the best division in football. 2 of the 3 best teams in the division, not including the Bears, obviously. This is just a trolling the Chicago Bears podcast, which I'm okay with. But 2 of the best 3 teams in the best division in football squaring off on Thursday Night Football. I think that was the greatest Thursday Night Football game I've ever seen. I know that's not saying much, but good Lord. It was a good game. It was a really, really good game. I mean, I watched it from start to finish, but I want to pull up the stats here. I'm going to hop on maybe PFF. They probably got the best stats going on. Not for grades, just for the stats themselves. Let's pull it up here. And Detroit were 3-point favorites. It was exactly on. Box score here. Okay. Jordan Love was 12 for 20 with 206 yards and a touchdown. Had 111 rating. I mean, he made the plays when he needed to, but that offensive line was really struggling. Jared Goff, in comparison, 32 of 41, 283, 3 touchdowns and an interception. Really good game. Josh Jacobs only had 3.7 yards a carry, but he had 3 touchdowns. He really made a difference in that game. And, I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery both ran the ball about 15 times. Jahmyr Gibbs didn't even get 3 yards a carry. David Montgomery didn't get 4 yards a carry. It was a brawl. This game was a straight-up fist fight. And it's exactly the kind of game I'm here for. Man, it was just a lot of fun. I'm shifting from box score to team stats here. Wow, the Lions dominated in time of possession. They had 36 minutes to Green Bay's 23 minutes. They had 76 offensive plays to Green Bay's 45 plays. Yards, Detroit has a notch about 100 yards. Yards per play, I mean, Green Bay's got 6.6 in comparison to Detroit's 5.1. They both had 7 penalties for around the same amount of yards, same amount of touchdowns. Yeah, they both had 1 turnover. Yeah, it was a pretty even game for the most part, but I mean, the Lions and the Packers want to play a similar brand of football, and the Lions are just better at this point. You know? I even posted, what did I say? I said something along the lines of, this game is going to come down to who has more experience, and it's the Lions. And, you know, the Packers have a young team, man, a really, really young team. It's going to take some time. It is going to take some time, but that's okay. Green Bay, you know, you're kind of hitting a small reset. You got Jordan Love. Even Josh Jacobs, he's only 26. Just feels like he's been around forever because he came in the league when he was 21 and started to make a contribution right away. Quick Diet Coke sip. We always got to have one of those. If this is your first time listening, this is a big part of the podcast. Diet Coke sips. Yeah, that was just an unbelievable game. Other things, I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs moves differently. I didn't really love him coming out of the draft. I think if there was ever a perfect situation, it would be Jahmyr Gibbs to Detroit, because even though he's very fast, even though he moves the way he does, if he was the main guy, I truly believe he would get injured pretty quickly. He's very blessed to have David Montgomery in front of him. And I think if they can continue with this tandem and that offensive line, it's the right spot for him, man. And that's why it matters where you land. And honestly, this Lions offense might be one of the most talented offenses I've ever seen in the way they were constructed. I'm pulling up PFF again. If you don't have PFF Plus, that's okay. But if you do, I would definitely recommend, if you click on a team and hit lineup, they have a great overview of basically the team's lineup, and you can see it in totality. So I just want to go across this offense and how talented they really are. So you've got Taylor Decker, I believe Taylor Decker, who's hurt currently. Let me double check on that because I know Skipper is starting. I believe it's Skipper. Yeah, Taylor Decker, who's currently hurt, but he's a very solid, I believe he's been a Pro Bowler before. You got Glasgow, however you say it. He's been solid for them. He seems to not be playing great this year, but solid. Frank Ragnow, Kevin Zeitler, and Penei Sewell. Insane talent on the offensive line. Probably it's either them or the Eagles in best offensive line in football. You've got Sam Laporta, who is a second-round pick. He's a do-it-all tight end. He's not physically super talented, but he knows how to play the position well. You've got Tim Patrick, who's a perfect, he's going to be your second wide receiver in terms of being that second outside guy, but not necessarily your second option. You got Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's one of the best slot receivers in the league. And you have Jameson Williams, who is a crazy talented deep threat, who was my wide receiver one coming out of the draft, the year he came out in 2022. Very, very talented wide receiver. And then you have not only David Montgomery, who's a ground and pound type of runner, but you also have a speed guy in Jahmyr Gibbs, and then you have a solid quarterback in Jared Goff that can just wheel and deal, dink and dunk his way to a crazy efficient offense. So I think a lot of times people just think of the skill positions, right? You think of greatest show on turf. You think of, the examples are escaping me at the moment, but you think of offenses like greatest show on turf. You have Marshall Faulk, Isaac Bruce, Torrey Holt. You got the skill position players and obviously Kurt Warner. But with the Lions, they have amazing skill position players, but also an incredible offensive line. Incredible. And they're just going to be hard to beat. And as a Vikings fan, I'm so excited. I'm so excited for this game because we were about a third down conversion away from possibly winning the game the last time we played them. And man, I am so excited. I believe it's the last game of the season for both of them. I have to double check. Unless the Vikings play Chicago. Nope, last one of the season. It's at Detroit too, which is not ideal, but Sunday, January 5th at noon. That should be a Sunday night football game. That game should be flexed. That's probably going to be one of the best games of the season. Hopefully. So we'll see. I just hope everybody underestimates the Vikings because every time they are estimated, whatever you want to call it, they find a way to blow it. So, yeah, I'm very excited for that game. But obviously, I'm recording this right after the Thursday Night Football game, but this is going to be our Friday episode. We're going to break down, what is it? What week are we going into? Goodness gracious. What week? Is it week 14? Yeah, We're going into the rest of week 14. So we're going to break down the games. Let's take a look here. I'm going to pull them up. NFL week 14 games. Are we ready? Okay. First game I'm seeing here, Browns Steelers. We're just going to go through and pick the games, kind of break them down. Browns Steelers here. So again, I'm using that lineup feature on PFF to really compare the offense versus the defense. So first we're going to start with Browns offense versus the Steelers defense. That's what we're going to start with. So despite having a very talented offensive line in terms of the talent, but in terms of the talent, they seem to not be playing as well this season. But what we have to understand about the Steelers is they probably have the best front seven in the league, if not one of the best. They are right up there. Jameis Winston is going to make some mistakes. We all know that he will. But he's going to make some mistakes. So the Steelers, basically what I want to do is I'm going to pull up their most recent games. It's kind of escaping me at this point. Okay, yeah, Cleveland's coming off that loss against Denver. And then the Steelers are coming off a win against the Bengals. Okay, so what I'm seeing here is I'm seeing a very talented front seven for the Steelers, more than likely going to dominate the Browns' offensive line. It's going to be hard for them to really do anything. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pull up the Steelers' offense versus the Browns' defense. So let's pull this up here. You got to have the clicking in the background. The high quality podcast we got going on here. Okay. Again, Steelers offensive line, somewhat good, somewhat shaky. It's basically below average at this point. They've invested some capital in the offensive line. They're just young and it's going to take time. Russell Wilson's playing pretty well. Najee Harris is setting the tone, not statistically making a difference, but he's definitely setting the tone. And then you're going to have the play action pass to George Pickens, who's going to make some crazy catch. The only problem with that is you've got Denzel Ward across on the other side. The Browns' defensive line, obviously, other than Myles Garrett, isn't great. It's pretty much below average. I'm going to pull up to see if they played each other before here. They have, and the Steelers lost. I forgot about that. The Steelers lost to the Browns 24-19. Wow. That's insane. I'm definitely shocked. I forgot that they had won. But let's take a look more at the lineup here. Interesting. Okay. I mean, the Browns defense definitely has some pieces. I think this is going to be a pretty even matchup, but I think the Browns are honestly, I mean, Jameis is bound to make a good amount of mistakes. And I think the Browns' offensive line is just going to get dominated at this point. So, yeah, I'm going to go, especially because the Browns beat them last time, I'm going to go Steelers on this one. The next, we've got the Giants and the Saints. So we're going to start with the amazing Giants offense, the not-so Daniel Jones-led offense against the Saints defense. This is more than likely going to be the highest-rated game of the week in terms of viewership. I'm just kidding, obviously. Yeah, I can't believe Chris Hubbard's still in the league. Who was it, the Steelers or the Browns who gave him all that money? I can't remember. Okay, this game's going to be terrible. Yeah. The Giants offense is atrocious. And the Saints defense has a few nice areas, but it ain't great either in terms of talent. We've got a few old names on the Saints off or defensive side. Tyrann Mathieu. I mean, we still have, Demario Davis. You got Chase Young too. That's a player for sure. Kool-Aid McKinstry, up and coming guy. Um, yeah, I mean, it's not neither are great, but I'm gonna give the edge to the Saints defense. Then we've got the Saints offense versus the Giants defense. This is where the money's gonna really be made on this game. Let's get it up here. Okay, so Derek Carr seems to be having a pretty good season. But obviously the Saints aren't playing well. He doesn't really have much. It's basically him and Alvin Kamara, especially because Taysom Hill is injured. You got Brian Burns, seems to be playing well. Dexter Lawrence is out. Yeah, man. I think the Giants have given up on this season. I'm not saying the Saints aren't close to that, but Derek Carr has played enough of irrelevant football games and found ways to win and still have motivation and purpose. So because of that, I'm going to pick the Saints. So far we've got Steelers, Saints. The next game is Jets, Dolphins. Let's pull this up here. We're going to pull up my boy A-Rod with Miami's defense. This game will be interesting because we've got a 3-9 New York Jets team versus a 5-7 Miami Dolphins team. The Dolphins are still going to be trying to make the playoffs. Don't get that twisted. Yeah, I just see this Jets offense and I'm just mind boggled that they're not a way better offense. I'm just absolutely flabbergasted. I honestly am. I mean, I really loved Malachi Corley coming out of the draft. You got him as your third wide receiver. You got Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson. Your offensive line seems to be playing at least decent. You've got some younger guys on there, but still. And it's Tyler Conklin. I'm a Vikings fan. I'm aware of what he can do. He's not the best tight end in the league, but he's definitely not the worst. Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, Aaron Rodgers. I mean, come on. What are we doing? And the Dolphins would be a lot better without the injuries, but I think this is pretty even. I wouldn't give the edge to anybody. I think this is a 50-50 matchup. Jets offense, Dolphins defense. We're going to pull up Dolphins offense versus Jets defense. This is where the game is going to be won or lost right here. Come on now, load for me. Clicking in the background, always. We got to get a Diet Coke sip up in here. Okay. You got Armstead at left tackle. You got Tua back. Jonnu Smith is playing out of his mind. Tyreek, Jalen Waddle, Odell Beckham Jr. I mean, incredibly talented offense. It doesn't matter who they've got on this defensive line. The Dolphins are going to get the ball out plenty of quickly. Yeah, I mean, you got some pretty good linebackers playing pretty good football. Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed. They're going to play these guys well. I'm going to give the edge to the Dolphins. I think this is going to be a close game, but I'm going to give the edge to the Dolphins because they need this game a lot more than the Jets do. That's my pick. I'm picking the Dolphins just because I think they really think they can make the playoffs, and I think they can make some noise if they get in there. I'm not saying they're going to win the Super Bowl or anything like that, but they are a very talented team, so I'm going Dolphins. Next, we've got Jags, Titans. Ugh. These are some rough games, man. Well, the next one's going to be a fun one to talk about. Okay, Jags, Titans. Let's talk about I don't know, I was going to say the fun one, but I don't think either of these are really fun. Gosh, both these teams are just awful. The Titans have, I mean, okay, they're not as bad as like the Giants offense, you know? But okay, we're going to start with Tennessee's offense versus Jacksonville's defense. This offensive line just seems to be playing terrible. I really love J.C. Latham coming out and Peter Skoronski. You may want to flip. I don't know. I think you could play either of them at tackle or guard. Otherwise, their offensive line is really rough. Yeah. Otherwise, Okonkwo's always been like a hit or miss tight end. I don't know if I trust him as a starter. You got Calvin Ridley, Westbrook Akine, who's on a hot streak. Will Levis is kind of a Jameis Winston type. I mean, he's going to make a lot of mistakes. Tony Pollard's solid. But, yeah, it's just rough. And then, you got Trayvon Walker, who's been, at this point, I mean, I wouldn't say he's a full-on bust right now, but we're getting there. We're getting close. Josh Hines-Allen, instead of Josh Allen, is playing well. Their linebackers are playing well. They've got talented safeties. Maybe could do a little better on the corners, but, they've definitely have some talented guys in there that just don't seem to be playing that well. I don't know. I'm going to give the edge to the Jags defense. That's what I'm saying. Let's pull up the Jags offense versus the Titans defense. Keep in mind, Trevor Lawrence is on IR. He's not playing the rest of the season. Yes, do I think that the head injury wasn't great? Yes. But I think if they were actually competitive, he'd more than likely be back in a week or two. Walker Little's playing solid. Ezra Cleveland's being Ezra Cleveland. So below average. But you'll take it. Brandon Scherf is not playing great football, supposedly. They definitely have some guys who are... It's a below average offensive line. But it's not far from average. Brian Thomas Jr. is incredibly talented. Evan Ingram. Otherwise, they're hurt all across the board. ETN, I don't know what's going on with him. Maybe he's lost a step. Maybe the injuries have gotten to him. I don't know. But this defensive line for the Titans is no joke either. I know they're doing really well in pass defense, but I don't think the Jags are going to be able to pass that much, and I don't think they can run either. So I might have to give the edge to the Titans defense. So I gave the edge to the Jags defense, then the Titans defense. So what I would say is I'm going to give the edge to the Titans because I think they have more to play for. I think they're playing for their jobs a little more. The Jags are playing for next season at this point. They've got a lot of capital invested, and I don't know. Their coach might be gone. The Titans are on the ascension. The Jags seem to be descending. So yeah, I'm gonna go Titans on this one. But you never know how the NFL is. Goodness gracious, you never know. Okay. And for the scariest game of the week for me is Falcons-Vikings. Everybody's talking about it. Kirk Cousins is coming back home against the Minnesota Vikings. And to set it up more than anything, he's got the most interceptions in the league. He's got the most fumbles in the league. The Vikings are hot. The Packers just lost. And I don't even need to compare. It doesn't matter what I say. It doesn't matter that the Vikings are better. The Vikings are going to lose this game. I don't even need to compare players. The Vikings are a better team. But because of the optics of what's about to happen, it doesn't matter. Kirk Cousins is playing awful this season. Maybe not awful, but he's not playing great. He's not playing like Kirk Cousins usually plays. And he's coming back home for revenge. And he's going to win. Don't get this twisted. He's mad. He's very mad. Kirk Cousins is going to come in and win this game. And it's going to embarrass Minnesota. And it doesn't matter if we even win the Super Bowl. He's going to be happy that he beat us in the regular season at home. It's what's going to happen. It doesn't matter. I have nothing else to say. Kirk's going to come in and they're going to beat us. They're going to barely beat us, but they're going to beat the Vikings. Panthers, Eagles. I think let's take a look at the Panthers offense versus the Eagles defense. I think we know what the obvious answer is. The Eagles are probably the hottest team in the league other than like maybe the Lions right now. And Carolina's down in the dumps. However, they're playing better. They were competitive with the Chiefs. But I'm not even going to play around. The Eagles are winning this game. I'm sorry, Panthers fans, but you ain't winning this game. Bucks, Raiders. Let's move on here. So I don't even need to compare. It's as much as I'd like to pick the Panthers, the Eagles are winning this game. And they're going to win pretty handedly. Bucks, Raiders next. Let's go Bucks offense, Raiders defense. Where are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers? Right here. Can't believe they used to be in the same division as the Vikings. That's crazy. They were the NFC Central, I believe. Which makes no sense to have Tampa Bay there, but Dallas Cowboys are NFC East, but, it's just because big markets. That's fine. North, south, east, west. It doesn't matter when you make money, I guess. Yeah, the Raiders defense is not playing well. Holy cow. I'm going to give the edge on the Bucks offense. This is pretty easy. And I think it's going to be easy the other way around. The problem with this time of year is that teams are very much who they are, at this point. So you kind of know what you're going to get. Sometimes, it's any given Sunday. It's football. Anything can happen. As Bud Grant said, it's a weird-shaped ball. You never know how it's going to bounce. Said the guy who lost 4 Super Bowls, but whatever. I'm sure that's a very convenient idea of how it works, but for him, but okay. Yeah, the Bucks are winning this game. Because not to mention they are a better team. They're also 6-6. They are vying for a playoff spot. This is not the game they're going to lose out on the playoffs, especially if I think Atlanta's going to win, especially if I think, New Orleans and Carolina doesn't matter. At this point, they're fighting for that divisional playoff spot. Who do we got next here? We got Seahawks Cardinals, which we broke this game down a couple weeks ago. They played very recently. Let me pull it up. They played very, very recently. I think it was just like 2 weeks ago, maybe 3. Let me pull it up here. I believe was it the Cardinals? I think the Cardinals won this game. Could be wrong. I picked the Seahawks. I do remember that. Oh, no, the Seahawks won. Okay. The Seahawks won, and I picked the Seahawks. So I remember them matching up pretty well against each other. However, I think because they lost to Seattle last time and they lost a nail biter to the Vikings, I'm going to pick the Cardinals in this game. I think the Cardinals are going to come through and maybe take the. Are they going to take the division on that one? Because who's in that division again? San Francisco. Who? The Rams. What's their record? Let's pull this up here. Rams, come on. Where are you at though? Rams are set. Okay, this is a close race. Yeah, I think Arizona's winning this game. 49ers versus Bears. There's a lot of talk about Mr. Kyle Shanahan going to the Chicago Bears. And boy, let's all pray to God that does not happen. Because we're going to have some real issues if he does, Minnesota. I'm going to pick, let's see here. I'm going to pick San Francisco. I don't think it matters that Eberflus is gone. It will not make a difference. This team can say that all they want, but they have a lot of issues talent-wise, and I don't think Chicago is going to be able to pull it off. Bills-Rams, this one is an interesting game as well. Actually, a really good game. Let's pull up the comparison here. So I'm going to pull up the Buffalo Bills offense and the Los Angeles Rams defense. So the Rams, the interesting thing right now about the Rams is they're relying a lot on young talent, be it very good talent. They drafted very well. I do like the players that they drafted, but young nonetheless. You got Kobe Turner playing very, very well in his second year. You do have Byron Young, who is one of the oldest rookies I've ever seen last year. Jared Verse was high up on my board, and then obviously, Fiske, Braden Fiske, also an older rookie, but I think just one NFC defensive rookie of the year. You've got some talent on the secondary, but it's not great as well. You're going to rely on a lot of pressure and blitzing to be able to make this work. And I think Josh Allen's just going to pick you apart. I don't know if the if the Bills are going to be able to run the way they'd probably like to against the Rams. I think they're going to be ready for it, but I think Josh Allen's going to pick them apart. So where this game becomes interesting is the Rams offense versus the Buffalo Bills defense. So I'm going to pull up that matchup here. Obviously, the offensive line is struggling in some areas. The Bills' defensive line is always going to have rotational talent going on here, but the weapons that the Rams have make this an even matchup in terms of offense versus defense with Matthew Stafford, Kyron Williams, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, and Demarcus Robinson as well. Puka's playing out of his mind now that he's back. I think I'm still going to have to pick the Bills because I think their offense is going to eat. And Rams' offense, I think, is going to be a little more competitive. It's going to be hard for them to win this game. I'm going to pick the Bills. Chargers, Chiefs. Now, that's going to be a really good game. I'm going to pick the Chargers. I'm not even going to pull up the comparison. I think at this point the Chiefs have gone too long playing close games, and I think that's exactly the kind of game Harbaugh wants to play. And is it Jim or John Harbaugh? Stop naming your kids with the same letter and then they get the same profession. Why can't you tell the future? Jay and John Gruden. Jim and John Harbaugh. Okay, it's Jim Harbaugh. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to pick the Chargers. Because did they play each other already? They probably had to have. Okay, I'm going to double check. If they've played and the Chargers won, I'm picking the Chiefs. But if they played and the Chiefs won, I'm picking the Chargers. They did play and the Chiefs won. I'm picking the Chargers. Lastly, we have Bengals Cowboys. Oh my gosh, the Bengals are 4-8. 5-7 Dallas Cowboys. Goodness gracious. Goodness gracious. Wow. Huh. Well, let's pull this up. We got Monday Night Football here. I'm going to start with the Bengals offense versus the Cowboys defense and see where we're at. Because really, the angle I want to take, I mean, the Cincinnati Bengals are 4-8, Cowboys are 5-7. Neither team is really playing for anything. However, I think the Cowboys believe in themselves a little more at this point. But Joe Burrow is not going to step on that field and not play, you know? He's not going to step up on that field and not try. Neither is Jamar Chase. I guess let's take the records out of it. Let's take it for what it is. Take what we can. Take what you can. The Bengals offensive line is still struggling. It's so unfortunate. The Cowboys defensive line isn't playing great either, but they are incredibly talented. I think I'm going to give them the edge there. The Cowboys defense is not playing well secondary-wise. And I'm going to give the edge to the Bengals defense, but it's close because of the pass rush of Dallas. So let's do it on the flip side here. Let's pull up the Cowboys offense versus the Bengals defense. Versus the Bengals defense here. Okay. You have a pretty talented offensive line for Dallas. Obviously, a lot of heavy investment there. You got Cooper Rush with Dowdle, CeeDee Lamb. I mean, yeah. Because Cincinnati's got Trey Hendrickson. You know, they've got Chris Jenkins from Michigan, who I liked coming out, if I remember correctly. BJ Hill, who's solid. You know, Sam Hubbard, who's solid. Man, not a great defense either. I'm going to have to give the edge to the Bengals. And I think I'm going to pick the Bengals. I think as much as I'd like to think that they're going to give up, I think Joe Burrow, it's impossible for people like Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase to step on that field and not try to win or think they're going to win. And I think Dallas definitely thinks they can win and are going to win, but they always overhype themselves, and I think Joe Burrow is going to humble them. Very deservedly going to humble them. So that's the picks for NFL Week 14. In other news, I'm really interested to see how this playoff, how this playoff picture is looking. So I'm going to pull up NFL standings off of NFL.com and see where we're at in playoff rankings. Actually, wait. I'm going to pull up NFL playoff picture because I know the NFL usually keeps that pretty updated. I know we've talked about this before, but just to give you guys an update of where it's at, I think that'll give us good insight of, what's to come in the next few weeks. Because, typically it's a lot of divisional games towards the end of the season, obviously to keep people still invested, obviously to, finalize those playoff spots. It's an important time. It kind of drives me nuts because it just provides so much anxiety at the end of the year. But, we'll take what we can. Okay, so at this point, the Chiefs and the Bills have already made the playoffs. The Lions have already made the playoffs. So as stands, the first round of the playoffs on the AFC side would be Bills-Broncos. Interesting. I think that's a pretty easy win for the Bills. I can't believe the Broncos are 8-5, but good for them. Steelers-Ravens. Heck yeah, that's going to be a good game. Because we got Steelers in the third spot, Ravens at 6, Texans at 4, Chargers at 5. I think the edge is going to go to the Chargers in that game. I think there's just something about the Texans that are just off, and they can't seem to put it together. And I think it's one of two things. It's either the fact that they just need one more year to really put things together and not necessarily get a bunch of stars, but get the right players, or it's the coaching. And I think we won't know if it's the coaching until the end of next season or well into next season, but I think they're just a year away. They're definitely not a bad team, but in terms of being a juggernaut and a real playoff contender, I think they still need another year. So those are the matchups we're going to have. Obviously, Detroit has made the playoffs in the first round of the playoffs for the NFC side. Wow, this is going to be good. And my nightmare will come true again. Because the Vikings would play the Falcons. Because the Falcons would be 4, Vikings would be 5. It would be at Kirk's home. So maybe if Kirk beats them, they can go back into Atlanta and win and get a little bit of revenge here. But on the other games here, we have the Eagles at 2, Commanders at 7. That would also be a great game. You might have to give the edge to the Eagles, but hey, man, you can't not count out the Washington Redskins, which is what I'm going to call them. And eventually that's what they'll be. Only time will tell, but I'm pretty confident in that. Then it would be Seattle and Green Bay. I don't think Seattle has a chance. I think Green Bay is too good of a team. The division that they're in, they are battle-tested, and they are ready for someone like Seattle. And Seattle has not played. Like, the NFC West is not bad, but it's not great either. It's definitely got a lot of talent, but it's not the kind of juggernaut of a division that the NFC North is at this point. I mean, even Chicago is not, like, they've got a bad record, but the teams they've lost to are not bad. That's why I kind of advocated for keeping Eberflus, because I didn't think it had as much to do with him as it did the roster construction. So at this point, I think if you're going to get rid of Eberflus, you need to get rid of Ryan Poles. But obviously they haven't. We'll see what Kevin Warren does. Seems like a stand-up guy. I've met him before. But we'll see. Only time will tell. But, yeah, I don't know. I don't think Seattle is the kind of team that can handle a team like Green Bay. I mean, I'm going to pull up Pro Football Reference. Great website if you've never used it. Pro Football Reference. Definitely not Pro Football Talk. You don't get much from that. You just get Mike Florio trying to be an advocate. Okay, so I'm pulling up Seattle Seahawks at 7-5 here. I just want to pull up their team stats and rankings. So I want to see defense here. Okay, defense in rushing, they're 21st in yards allowed. Yeah, Green Bay's going to eat them alive, man. Yeah, that's not going to be fun. And I know, like, Seattle's got some star power. Like, they can put up some points. They haven't been necessarily efficient, but man, they can score a touchdown like that very quickly with the kind of talent that they have. So Green Bay's defense can be kind of hit or miss, but I don't know. I think we'll see. But I think Green Bay is gonna absolutely annihilate them. And then also, okay, so then on the AFC side, we'd have Kansas City versus who would be the lowest ranking winner that I'd pick. The Chargers. I think Kansas City wins that game, especially if the Chargers win this week, like I'm saying. And then it would be Bills versus Steelers, right? Bills Steelers. Man, talk about a matchup I want to see. We talked about this before, but man, I I think the Bills are the team this year for the AFC. They're doing it right this year. And man, that's going to be probably one of the best games to watch of the season. But I'm going to give the edge to Buffalo. Buffalo, Kansas City. I think Buffalo edges them out. I think Kansas City's a little vulnerable this year. And yeah, maybe it's the time. Switching over to the NFC, we've got Detroit versus Green Bay. Man. So my father-in-law, for those of you who don't know, I'm a Vikings fan. My father-in-law is a Packers fan, which is, I don't know what to call it. It's interesting. And I said, good game, better luck next time, after Green Bay lost. But he said we'll beat them in the playoffs and go to the Super Bowl. I don't know if go to the Super Bowl is believable because you've got to get past the Vikings first, but probably more difficult the Eagles. So I don't know how that's going to go, but would I be surprised if Green Bay beat Detroit? No, I would not. Because the way I think about football is I think it's about momentum and I think it's about vulnerability. And football is very hard. And I think there's only so many times that you can beat a team. And Green Bay's lost twice to Detroit. So I think I might pick the Packers. So then that leaves the Eagles and the Vikings. Oh, that makes me so sad. Ugh. I think I'm going to have to pick the Eagles. I'm not that. I want to pick the Vikings. I would love to see the Vikings beat the Eagles. That would make me so happy. But I don't think the Vikings can do it. So I think we got Packers, Eagles in the Super Bowl. Gonna give it to the Eagles. Packers, Eagles, NFC Championship game. Gotta give it to the Eagles. We got Bills, Eagles, Super Bowl. Whew, that'd be a good game. I think the Eagles are a better team, but I can't pick the Eagles to win a Super Bowl, so I'm going Bills. I don't know. I don't care who wins at that point. I like Josh Allen. I would just be mad that the Bills have won a Super Bowl and the Vikings haven't. Like, okay, NFL teams who haven't won a Super Bowl. Also, for those of you who don't know, the Vikings have like the 5th highest winning percentage in the NFL history of all teams. And they're like, I think they're 4th and they're like one of the only teams the only team in the top 5 that hasn't won a Super Bowl. So that's cool. But okay. So this is the list of teams that have never won a Super Bowl. Cleveland Browns, Detroit Lions, Houston Texans, Jacksonville Jaguars, Arizona Cardinals, Los Angeles Chargers, Tennessee Titans, Atlanta Falcons, that's hilarious, Carolina Panthers, Cincinnati Bengals, Buffalo Bills, Minnesota Vikings. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Wow, 12 teams? That's a lot of teams. Okay, that's not as short of a list. Maybe I'd feel less bad, but it would still suck. That is a lot of teams. But, if any of them were... I definitely don't want Detroit off that list. Because I get it. Y'all were a clown show for a while, and you got dogged on a lot. But I feel like as a Vikings fan, we understood you. We were compassionate, and ever since y'all got good, you have been like the worst fan base. Maybe not the worst, but y'all have been tyrants. You've had this pent-up anger for decades, and we have been hearing it. And because Green Bay and Chicago have like their historic rival, we've kind of had our own rival too, and I'm sick of it. I'm sick of hearing about y'all. I like the Lions as like a culture and where they're at, but I can't root for the division rival here. I mean, it's gonna be us in Detroit at this point, because Green Bay kind of knocked themselves. I mean, they did knock themselves out of the playoff race, or not the playoff race, the NFC North winner race, right? The NFC North division winner. They definitely knocked themselves out of it. So, I don't know, man. Yeah, they're 9-4. I mean, technically they haven't, but it's going to take a lot. I mean, Detroit would have to lose the rest of their games. So, and Packers would have to win the rest of their games. So, we'll see. I might go Bills Super Bowl here. This is kind of where I'm at. I'll kind of update it as I go. But I think I'm going Bills Super Bowl. Shout out to Josh Allen. I'd love to see him win a Super Bowl. Haley Steinfeld there. I like her too. Sorry, Miles Morales. I know you couldn't finish that, but of all people to lose to, Josh Allen, that ain't bad, man. That ain't bad at all. But yeah. Oh gosh. What do I do? I'm trying to get to an hour. I got 3 minutes. What do I do? Should we talk about Wizard of Oz again? I've been singing the Wicked theme songs like at work so much. And it's kind of annoying people, but I'm one of those people that gets songs stuck in people's heads because I just sing the same thing over and over again. Drives my wife nuts. But she loves me anyway, What is love for, The fact that Peter Dinklage was a goat in that, hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. Also, the fact that the Wicked Witch of the East, the sister of Elphaba, was in a wheelchair, and she's the one who had the house dropped on her. Hilarious. I also saw some spoilers on TikTok that explained everything. Hilarious. Now I want to see Moana 2. So we'll see if my wife wants to go to that. We have a cool theater around us that's like only like $7, and it's only has one theater, but it's giant, and they only show one movie. But the problem is like they're probably just gonna show Wicked, so probably have to pay like $20 a ticket for Moana 2. Holy cow. It's late at night. It's almost midnight where I'm at right now. I gotta get another Diet Coke sipping. Hey, if you stayed this long for the rambling to get to an hour, I don't always try to do it like this. I usually have something to talk about. But you know what? God bless you. And God bless America. I don't know what else to say. Should I just count down from 30? I know nobody's listening right now. I got 20 seconds left to hit an hour. because that is what I promised the people that do not listen. That's okay. Hey, I got a lot of engagement on X from live tweeting this Thursday night football game. It was a lot of fun. It gets you so excited for the game when you're just live reacting. I had my laptop out. It was easy to tweet. You know, maybe I should do that more often. I think it'll be a lot better. But yeah, we're at the hour mark here. So thank you for listening. If you've listened this far, don't forget to follow me on X, TWYCF on X. That's Take What You Can Football on X. Do not ever forget that Jesus loves you. He died on the cross for your sins. If you don't believe in him, please find a way to him. He grants you eternal salvation. He changes your life forever. He changes your heart. And I hope he does so. And I hope you surrender your life to him because he ultimately paid the price for you. I appreciate you if you're listening. You know, Take What You Can is definitely so much fun for me to do. And yeah, God bless you and take care. Have a great weekend.